This is my question for you. Helpful if you leave a response. It's fine if you don't. But how would you feel about this? Is we are working on our community update for our game, The Anacrusis. For that update, it is PC based right now, and that Steam just lets us iterate in a kind of private beta section. If you want to join it, just put in "We testing" in the drop down in Steam, and it'll give you access to that beta. So it just works really well. We can test it really quickly with everybody. But the main game is cross-platform. But the main game barely runs on older Xboxes, but we're required to run on those Xboxes. The current community update, it will not. Well, especially in beta form. So if you ever see any of the streams that I have of doing it, I'm running in beta. I'm running like the dev build, and so that's got a lot of debug stuff in it. It's like the slowest version. Someone was like, "Oh my god, the frame rate." I'm like, yeah, it's a dev build. This is like, you just ignore that. Of course, that's the way it's going to be. But that said, we're also actually putting some more stuff on the screen, and there's some more craziness happening, which will have a performance hit. It's funny. The other day. We played Left 4 Dead, and we got like 1,200 zombies killed at the end, right? And we're like, "Oh my god, that's a lot." We played the Anacrusis, and we had like 16,000. We put a lot of stuff on the screen. And Ultraviolet Mode, the community update, really makes that about how do you manage and juggle all of those enemies, and gives you a bunch of tools for it, but those tools aren't always performant. Now, eventually, we will get it to be the same performance level as we're at now. But not at first, because that's a really hard thing to do, and especially working with people in the community who aren't used to having to work that way, that's just going to take some time. So the question is, if you were an Xbox player and you had the version you have now, and we're not going to change that, but if you wanted to cross-play with somebody on Steam, you're going to have to enter a beta code on Steam like Xbox, and that'll then put you in a compatible version. But the main version on Steam will not be compatible with Xbox for a little bit, at least at first. I shouldn't promise it will ever be. In theory, it will be, but I don't want to make false promise to anybody. So would that bother you as an Xbox player? I mean, I know you want the update, but would that bother you that your friends who wanted to play with you would have to put in that code? Does that bother Steam users? Does that bother, I don't know. Does that bother people? Or is that an acceptable way to handle it? I've seen some other games handle it this way because it's the same problem of, it's just a lot easier and quicker to update on Steam. And then once we hit that, because we're going to also include a bunch of community maps and all kinds of stuff, right? So like, it's a big chunky update. Really excited about it, but none of that stuff's been optimized right now. And if we just had to do like the high-end Xboxes, we are fine. They run fine. They're perfect. But some of the low ones don't. And some of the ways we do sound and some other stuff just don't work. And so we need to rework that for that, and that will take some time. I don't ever want to lose cross-compatibility entirely, because we've made a pact where we said this is something our game has. And so I want to make sure that the core game has that. And so you can almost think of the community update as just a workshop update, and Xbox doesn't have that compatibility already, so that's okay, maybe. That's kind of how I'm thinking about it. But I do worry about that, and I always worry about, like, hey, if we've made a promise to players, like Xbox players, our Xbox communities is way smaller, but hey, you bought the game. You deserve the respect, and you deserve the consideration of everybody else. It's just there's more work to get there. And so I'm kind of curious of how people feel about that, and welcome the feedback. And you could say I'm wrong. You can say it's a bad idea. It depends on when you catch me in the middle of the evening if I'm thinking it's a bad idea myself, right? So but we'll sort through it. But would really just love the feedback of kind of people of how they think about it. And this is one of those things of like, when you run a really big company, or you run big teams, you can ask internally in the team, and you have enough difference of opinion that you can kind of get an idea on it. When it's really much smaller, you get groupthink really quickly, and it's hard to break out of that and get new perspective. So welcome to new perspective. And again, this would be Xbox and PC would still be compatible, but not for the community update. And the Xbox players would be able to play with anybody on the PC who just entered the code Xbox into their PC Steam beta, and then that version of the game, which is the current live version. So it'd be like we never updated the Xbox at all. It'd be the current live version of that, and see how people feel about that. Hopefully that makes sense.